Okay. All right. I'm going to get us started here. I'm going to put the chat up. And here's what we'll do. My way of like taking attendance, because I will give everyone who attends, you know, live some extra credit points. Like, so will be to just hit the drill answer. I'll probably do it again later. So if some other people come on, I have them too. All right, all of the following may result in increases in real GDP product in the long run, except, all right, 1, 2, 3, let's go. All right, I got a lot of these coming up here. And okay, the answer is E. Now, I want to bring up a couple of points here. One, whenever they say economic growth, which they didn't say here, economic growth is about the long run, okay? And A, B, C, and D would change economic growth. And you could even say would shift the LRAS curve to the right. Technological progress, technology, investment in human capital, which is a change in quantity or quality of resources, discovery of new natural resources, change of quality. Now, the tricky one is decrease in corporate taxes, because a decrease in corporate taxes does two things. One, it gives corporations more money, and they could use that money to use investment in factories, investment in equipment, investment in new in new stores. So all of that would be what they would call capital stock. And anytime you increase capital stock, you're going to increase economic growth. Okay? Anyone have any questions on that? Okay. Let's see what we got. All right, let us remember in the holy presence of God, in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear God, I'm thankful for all the guys gathering today on a day off to be here. I truly, truly appreciate it. Hopefully, it'll be a little less windy so you can enjoy the outdoors and have a great weekend. St. John the Baptist, LaSalle, live Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. All right, so next week, I'm gonna check your chapter notes. The notes due are on the chapter, Aggregate Demand Influence on Fiscal and Monetary Policy. I would tell you, in both taking notes and reading the chapter, really keep your focus on fiscal policy, because for the unit, we are not going to do any monetary policy. Wednesday, I'm going to hold a review in room 745 at 7:45, after school at 2:50, and at night at 7:30 for the unit test on Thursday. Okay, the unit test will be 30 multiple choice, and then Friday we will have an FRQ. All right. So basically, I think I could get away with some new learning today, some new learning Tuesday, Wednesday in class, a lot of practice questions, to help prepare us for Thursday's unit test. All right, here's what the unit test breaks down if you're looking at it. There'll be 3 questions.
Go back to the last slide real quick, Mr. Besser.
Say that again?
The last slide real quick.
Yeah, sure. Just tell me when you're done.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're going to have 3 questions from the short to the long run. Like wealth increases in the United States, aggregate demand shifts right. How do you get to the long run? Short run aggregate supply eventually shifts left. 3 on the multiplier. Hopefully we'll get to the multiplier today. 11 just on shifters. So it's basically knowing RAP, consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. 8 on fiscal policy. And truthfully, fiscal policy, like most of it, is knowing government spending, decreased taxes, both of them shift AD, increasing or decreasing, either one of them. And then we're going to do marginal propensity to consume, and marginal propensity to save today, and we'll do balanced budget on Tuesday. So again, I think like 11 of them are going to be on the shifters. So definitely, like if we have time Wednesday, there'll be a lot of questions on shifting the short-run aggregate supply curve and the aggregate demand curve. All right. Now, I just want to quickly go over what happens to nominal wages from. So, say stock market boom, right? If I started at 1, I go to AD2, I'd be at 2. It's asking nominal wages. All right, the definition of the short run is wages are sticky. So if I'm making $100 a week at 1, I'm also making $100 a week at 2 because wages are sticky. All right, so nominal wages do not change from 1 to 2. The second thing they can ask you is what happens to real wages? Well, real wages is purchasing power, okay? So when I go from 1 to 2, what happens? Price levels increase. So my $100 now gets me less purchasing power at 2. So nominal wages increase, nominal wages stay the same, and real wages decrease. All right, I'm going to go over that one more time. Optimism. I'm at 1, AD shifts. I go to 2. At 2, I'm in the short run. How do I know that? I visually see it's not on the LRAS curve. Okay, in the short run, wages are sticky. If wages are sticky, I'm making the same. I made 100 at 1, I make 100 at 2. Nominal wages don't change. Now, I went from P1 to P2. Price levels are up at 0.2. So real wages, which is purchasing power, has decreased. Any questions on that? I'll take your word. You could always question in the chat or just turn on your mic. All right. So what type of gap? Tony, could you flip on your mic and tell me what type of gap we have here?
We have a recessionary gap.
Okay. Joe, could you flip on your mic and tell me what fiscal policy should government use here? Joe Campbell.
Expansionary.
Okay, and when they say what fiscal, Joe, they want like more specific, like what type of expansionary?
Like increasing government spending.
Okay, increasing government spending. Henry, if they didn't increase government spending, what else could they do to expand the economy here?
They could decrease income taxes.
They could decrease income taxes. All right, now the question would be, how much should government spend? Right? All right, let's just take government spending because that's easy. Like, how much should they spend? And I think if I was asking you guys now in class where it'd be easy, most people would say 100 billion. We're 100 billion short. But let me show you, if we spent 100 billion, what would happen? That would be the curve. Okay? Now, we don't want to go from a recessionary gap to a high inflationary gap. Now, let's look why that would happen. Why would AD shift way more than the 100 billion government would spend? It's called the multiplier effect. All right, why do cities want the Super Bowl? because there's so much extra spending that goes into someone just coming on to the Super Bowl. All right. So let's see, I thought I had this spelled out, but I might not have. Okay, so like Bobby spends 100 on Jason's product. Jason now has more income, so he buys $100 of Nancy's product. Nancy now has more money, so she buys 10. So the original 100 now turns into $300 of spending. All right, because people are, again, if I spend, someone makes, and then people are going to, spend what they make. So that is the multiplier effect. So when government puts in 100 billion, it's not going to change GDP by only 100 billion. It's going to change GDP by more. Again, that's what we'll look at. So the multiplier effect show how much spending. So now we know, and we did a great job yesterday, we know what fiscal policy to use, like government spending or taxes. Today, we're going to look at how much should government spend. And we're going to just focus on government spending today. Tuesday, we'll focus on taxes a little more there, okay? All right, so if the government spends 5 million, will aggregate demand increase by the same amount? And we said no, right? Aggregate demand is going to increase by more, okay? All right, but how much? All right, so here's what. If I gave Colin $100, he could do one or two things. He could either spend it or save it. Now, the more consumers save, the less aggregate demand will increase, right? Because if Nick J spends $100 with me and I save 80 of it, and then I spend $20 with Connor, I mean, the multiplying effect is not as big, okay? So we got to look at two different variables when we're looking at the multiplier effect. We've got to look at how much people are going to consume of every dollar they save, and how much people are going to save of every dollar, okay? And those two things, and I'll probably have a slide coming up next, are the marginal propensity to save and the marginal propensity to consume. And I'll just leave this in case someone's jotting it down. I'll leave it up. And again, I know some people have come on late here. Just so you know, under the aggregate supply and aggregate demand, that there is an outline you could use to follow. Okay, so I get this to turn. All right, so the marginal propensity to consume, MPC. It's how much people consume rather than save with a change in their disposable income. So I just got a raise. So say my raise is $100. What percentage of that $100 will I consume? That is the marginal propensity to consume, okay? So the marginal is change in consumption over change in disposable income, all right? So let's say again, I got a $100 raise. That's my change in income. If I decide to spend 70, it's going to be 70 over 100, all right, which would be 0.7. But that is the marginal propensity to consume, okay? Now, if you received $100 and spent 50, Will Andros, what would be your marginal propensity consume, for example, 1?
1/2.
Yeah, 0.5, okay? It's usually put in a decimal, 1/2, 0.5. All right, if you received 100 and spent 80, Clyde, what would be your marginal propensity to consume?
0.8.
No, 0.8, right? Is that what you said?
That's what I said, yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear you. Sorry, 0.8, yes. All right, and then if you received 100 and spent 100, it'd be 1. All right, so there is, again, how to figure out the marginal propensity to consume. Change in consumption over change in disposable income. Now, I talked before about you could either consume or you could save. So the next slide, I hope, is going to be the marginal propensity to save. And there it is. All right. This is how much people save rather than consume. Now, notice we had like 0.5, 0.8, 1. All right. We're going to put them in decimals. If all you could do is save and consume, the marginal propensity to save and the marginal propensity to consume is always going to equal 1. Okay? All right. So it's always expressed as a fraction. And it's the same kind of thing, except it's, change in savings. So back to my other example. I got a $100 raise. I consumed 80. That means I saved 20. So I now would have 20 over 100.2. Remember, my marginal propensity to consume was 0.8. So 0.8 plus 0.2 equals 1. And that's, I took care of all my 100. I spent 80 and saved 20. All right. I am going to give you like 30 to 45 seconds for everyone to do these. And then I'll probably just, because some people came on after I took the attendance kind of the first time. And again, it's not a harmful attendance. It's just a way for everyone who came live for me to give you some extra points for being here today. So I just want to take a second run around the clock, okay? So I'll give you like 30 or 40 seconds to figure that out, and then we'll chat. All right. If you're in section 01, could you type in your answer to question 1? Okay. All right. And this would be 50 over 100, which would be 0.5. All right, people in section 2, could you just type in your answer for point 1, for question 1? Oh, you guys are doing question 2. All right. As long as I got the point 2, people. Okay. All right, if you're in 03, just type in the answer to number 2. Okay. And then last but not least, the 04 guys for question 2. Okay. All right. And I'm going to just review like question. If I received 100 and my marginal propensity to consume is 0.7, I know they have to equal 1. So then my marginal propensity to save has to be 0.3. 0.7 plus 0.3 equals 1. So if my marginal propensity to save is 0.3, all right? Here, for 2, just to put dollars amount, I would spend 70 and save 30. Okay, any questions? You can either chat them or turn on your mic, whichever way you feel more comfortable, if there's any questions. Okay, I'll move forward then. All right, and this is what I just gave you both ways to look at it. Either way, you're going to solve for X either way. NPS equal 1 minus NPC, or NPS plus NPC equals 1. All right, now, so I've got like how to figure out how much people are going to consume and save, but I'm still trying. Remember, the goal here was how to figure out the multiplier effect so I know how much government should spend. So, quick multiple choice. I didn't realize this was it. All right, give you a minute and then we'll chat in the answer. A high marginal propensity to consume implies which of the following? And just wait, and then I'll put up the chat box and count to 3. Give everyone time to think. All right. 1, 2, 3. What do we got? Okay. We got mostly E's. We had a couple of people choose something else. All right. If I got so say marginal propensity to consume is 0.8, which is high, then marginal propensity to save is going to be 0.2, which is a little lower, because they're going to equal 1. So the higher the marginal propensity to consume, the lower the marginal propensity to save. Of course, they're going to equal 1. Okay. Again, a higher marginal propensity to consume, you're going to have a lower savings rate. I mean, it has nothing to do with the tax rate. It's going to be a big change in consumption. And equilibrium level of income, that has nothing to do with it. All right, so you guys did a good job there. We got E as in L. All right, now, finally, how to calculate the spending multiplier. So if the NPC is 0.5, so the marginal propensity to consume is 0.5. Immediately, I'm saying the marginal propensity to save is 0.5. That's just going through my mind. Here is the spending multiplier. There are 2 ways you could use, whichever way you are more comfortable. It's either 1 over NPS, which here would be 1 over 0.5, or 1 over 1 minus NPC, which if I take 1 minus 0.5 is 1 over 0.5. They're both going to be the same again. So whichever one you feel comfortable. I memorize one of them. You don't have to memorize both. All right. So if the spending multiplier is 4, how much will an initial increase of government spending increase the GDP? Give you guys a little second there to think. Okay, why don't we chat in? 1, 2, 3. How much will GDP increase? Okay, people are getting the 20. Okay, so it's 5 times the multiplier, and that's 20. All right, and I'm going to give you, at least I hope I'm going to give you an easy formula. And you really didn't need the formula for this one because it was pretty simple. But there is the formula. The change in GDP, which was 20, equal the multiplier, which was 4, times the increase in government spending, which was 5. For all of these, if you've got this formula and you just plug in, it makes the problems very easy, okay? If you don't, sometimes you're worried when to multiply, when to divide. This just is plugged in. It makes it easy. I've been doing this for a while, so. Okay. All right, thanks, Colin. All right, so let's see. Do we have some practice ones coming up? Okay. All right, I'm going to leave these 4 up here. And I'll give you a minute or 2 to go through them. And then we will do them, we'll chat in some answers together. Okay. All right, let's do number 1. What is the multiplier for number 1? I understand, Matt. I knew you were out there. All right, sit. If the MPC is 0.9, type in the multiplier for number 1. 1, 2, 3, go. All right, got a lot of 10s. Okay, now you might not be great on fractions. I'm not. So it would be 1, and MPC is 9. So the MPS is 0.1, 1 over 0.1. If I change that and I move that over 1, and I just add a 0, it's 10 over 1, and that gives me 10. All right. If the MPC is 0.8, what is the multiplier? 1, 2, 3, boom. Okay. I've got a mixture here of 20s and 5s. So let's just quickly review it. Okay. So here it's 1 over 0.2, right? It's 1 because NPC is 0.8, MPS is 0.2 then. So it's 1 over 0.2. I'm going to move this over 1. So this is going to be 2. So it's going to be 10 over 2. And the multiplier is going to be 5. Any questions on that? Because we had a couple of people who had 20s. Could be just a math mistake. Okay. All right. Let me look at this quick. If the MPC is 0.5 and consumption increased by 2 million, okay, how much will GDP increase? Okay, let's go 1, 2, 3. What do we got? GDP increases. I've got some 4 mils. I got 4 mils. Okay. All right. Good job. If the MPC is 0.5, I know the NPS is 0.5. 1 over 0.5 is 2. All right. So the initial investment is 2 million times the multiplier is 2. That gives me 4 million. Easy to do. All right. And then the last one, if the MPC is 0, and investment increases 2 million, right? Investment is one of the shifters of aggregate demand. How much will GDP increase? 1, 2, 3. What do we got there? All right, we've got 2 millions mostly. I think I saw 1 or 2 zeros. All right, the MPC is 0. The MPS is 1 because they have to equal 1. So 1 over 1 is 1. So I'm going to take the multiplier, which is 1 times 2 million, will give me 2 million. All right, you could turn on your mic or you could chat. Is there anything, any questions that you would like to ask about MPS, MPC, or the multiplier, the 3 things we've covered so far today? All right. So we're kind of back to this place where I think we might have started when I asked you how much. So Congress uses discretionary. So here are going to be, here are going to be the 4 questions. I'll give you like a minute and then we'll answer them. And that should be pretty much it, unless there's another practice one there. Okay? So I'll give you a minute to look at this. Okay. All right, Ian Holmes, what type of gap do we have here?
A recessionary.
Okay, we got a recessionary gap. Good. Gary, do we need contractionary or expansionary policy?
Expansionary.
All right, great. Nick, could you give me one of the 2 options we could use?
Which Nick? Is me.
Oh, Nick Davis. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah. The 2 options you can either have more government spending or you can have less taxes.
Okay. Luke, how much should the government increase if the marginal propensity consume was 0.8?
$100.
Okay, it's 100 billion, but right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. All right. So we want to close a $500 billion gap. So we want to change the GDP by 500. The marginal propensity to save is going to be 0.2, right? Because the marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. So I'm going to have 1 over 0.2. I'm going to switch that over. So it's 10 over 2. So I know my multiplier is 5. And how much is the initial spending? That's the question. So that'll be 5x. 5x equals 500. X is going to equal 100 billion. Any questions on that? Please ask. That's a typical like multiple choice or FRQ type question you could have. All right, there's something in the chat. Let's see what we got. Oh, X would have been, Jordan, initial spending. So the formula, I'm sorry, Jordan, the formula is change in GDP, which is 500, equals multiplier times initial investment. So the 500 is the change in GDP. The multiplier was 5. The initial investment, which is how much should government spend, is X. Okay. People are good there. Okay. And that would get you there. All right. All right. Let's just do this last one and then we're done for the day. I'll give you a minute. Okay, thank you. Just had a pocket visit from Brother John there. All right. Carson Ford, what type of gap do I have? Carson, you there? All right, I'm going to move on. Riley, what type of gap do I have?
Inflationary.
I got an inflationary gap. Walter, what do I need to do? What are my two options?
Sorry for the noise, but you can decrease government spending or increase taxes.
Okay. Matt H, how much do I need to decrease government spending to close the gap?
Is it 10?
All right. So the multiplier, right, it's going to be 1 minus 0.5. So it's going to be 1 over 0.5, which is going to be 2. So I got to change. The change in GDP is 20 times equals the multiplier 2, and the initial spending would be X. So you're going to get 10. Okay. All right. Any questions about anything before we sign off for the day?
When are the reviews on Wednesday?
7:45 in the morning, 2:50 after school, and 7:30 at night.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Something in the chat. You guys are good if you don't have questions. Yeah, Dom, discretionary income, discretionary rather, would be government spending and taxes, which takes laws of Congress, you know, for that to happen. Non-discretionary is things that are already set in place, like welfare and unemployment. Does that make sense?
Yep, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, you guys have a great day. Thank you.